Welcome to Serious Software's e-commerce training series. In this video, we'll be looking at the requirements of having your own custom URL attached to an e-commerce store. For today's video, I will be showing you the wiki page that we have about setting up a custom URL. Your DNS provider or host should be provided this link and can help advise you on what type of URL you are looking to set up. Some things to note: we host wildcard and standard SSL certificates. A standard SSL being that you will only ever support one URL under the certificate that you're buying. It's going to be just one link, one static link, and have no association with anything else. A wildcard certificate is the ability to host multiple things under a domain. So a more broad example might be store.yourdomain.com, email.yourdomain.com, and so on and so forth. The store and the dot are all encompassed in the wildcard certificate. We do not sell SSL certificates. You will be responsible for seeking out that yourself or through your domain hosting provider. We also support Microsoft IIS-based servers. We can't support things like Apache, and we do recommend a minimum of a 1-year certificate. If you are going to be looking at a wildcard SSL type setup, if your DNS provider or web host is familiar with the different types of setup and they can do this without the involvement of our team, we do have a note here. They can just send us the PFX file with the password and we can install the certificate on our server to help with the redirect link in support of that link in our stores. If you do need our team to help you through the process, it starts with requesting a CSR. A CSR is a request for information, and we need the following information. We need what store ID from my stores that you want to apply this to. What certificate are we applying this to? So this will always be a wildcard format, and it'll always start with the star dot and then whatever the domain is that you are registering. Then we will need the CNAME that you plan on setting up. So what is going to go before that your domain part? Is it going to be store? Is it going to be shop? Is it going to be something about a specific brand that you're setting up? Whatever that might be, we need to know what that part is going to be as well. Then we need to know what's the organization name, city, state, and country that you registered for the certificate, as it will be registered on the certificate. And then just to be clear that we are going to be setting up a request for information for a wildcard, please include that you have purchased or planning to purchase a wildcard certificate so we can set that request up correctly. Once we have sent you the CSR, you will go to your provider and you will buy that same certificate, or you'll apply it to an existing certificate. And we'll need you to create a CNAME record for the store link that you want us to use moving forward. If you don't have a domain provider, we have provided a list of a couple recommendations that people use pretty commonly. However, if you find something else that fits within the guidelines that we talked about earlier, please feel free to use those. When creating our CNAME, you'll go into your provider, you'll create the name or the host field. GoDaddy, who is pretty common, calls it host and not name, but please check your provider's documentation for which each of these fields may relate to. A lot of fields will be slightly different depending on who that host is. In the case of this record, and we'll use GoDaddy for simplification, the host name will be whatever you wanted in front of that .yourdomain.com. So in my case, this will be store, matching my example up here. And then GoDaddy will append the rest of that, so the .yourdomain.com. If your provider does not, and it does require the full link to process, then you will need to type in the rest of that information. Then you will have a TTL record. We do recommend you use the provider's default, that will help the circulation and the registration happen a lot quicker. If your provider does not have a default, please use ours here on the screen. The type will be a CNAME, and then the record value, or basically where should this record be pointing, should be ecomdnsverify.corebridge.net. And then you can save the entry. Once you save the entry, you should get a notification to the admin or web host email of that domain. Again, check your provider's documentation. The emails can change depending on who is the provider, but there should be some type of administrative email that it verifies that you own the rights to that domain. You verify that you do own the rights to that domain. It will complete the registration and in turn create what we call a CRT. That CRT should be sent back to us here at Sirius so that we can complete the registration on our side. Some email providers do block the sending of that type of file, the CRT type of file. If that is the case, just send it in a zip file so that we make sure that we can get that file through to our staff. Once we receive the certificate and we've verified that all the settings are correct and that it will process, we will send it to our development team who will apply it to the storefront. And then in My Stores, you will now see a generic link, which will always be there. It will always be the link that the preview button opens as well. But then you should also be able to type in your custom link and it go to the store just as if that was the native link for the store. If you're adding to an existing wildcard that Sirius has already previously set up, we do have steps for that as well. So you would still set up a CNAME record. All the settings would still be the same, just as we had previously discussed. In my case, I'm now adding to my wildcard an option for myburgershop.yourdomain.com. So I had previously registered that with the store example. So this would be the information that I would send in for that as well. Again, if you are familiar with the DNS settings, you can just send us a completed PFX file with a password. If not, then you can send us this record as well. Again, remember to send in the store ID, what's the certificate name, and what is the CNAME record. The second type of certificate is a standard certificate. Simply means you are only going to host one website on this certificate, period. There's not going to be any extensions. There's not going to be any additional information, just this one link. Now that can look one of two ways. If we look at our example here on the screen, it could be something like this, where I just want a my store or yourstore.com, or it could be similar to the example we looked at the top. However, I'm just buying the certificate for shop.yourstore.com. It is very important that this is a single site and not attached to an existing domain. You'd send us the store ID, the domain, and the organizational information that will be registered or is registered on the certificate. In this type of certificate, you tell us it's a standard certificate so that we can set up the right information for you. Once we have sent you the CSR, the steps will be very similar to what we discussed on the wildcard side of things, but there will be some key differences. So we're going to start with the example that is shop.yourstore.com. This is for that single domain. I don't ever want anything else but just that one link. I will create a CNAME record for it. Similar to our example up at the top, I will register the CNAME record or the host name based on GoDaddy setting as shop. It will append the rest of that, yourstore.com. If not, fill that in. Use your provider's TTL record. Again, this is to help the registration go faster if you use their default. If they don't have a default, please use our setting, 14400. The type will be CNAME and the record or the value will be ecomdnsverify.corebridge.net. If you are doing the second example, which is just a single parent domain, yourstore.com, the settings will look a little bit different. We need now an A and a CNAME record. You would send in for the CSR the same way, the same information that we looked at up at the top. But now once we send that back to you, you have to create two records. You need to create a record with the host or a name of the @ symbol. The TTL should be the provider's default or ours. The type is A and the record value should be 23.99.196.206. Then you will also need a CNAME record. The host or the name value will be an asterisk. It will be a wildcard. The TTL will be the provider default or ours. The type will be a CNAME and the record value will be ecom dnsverify.corebridge.net. Please make sure you're always coming back to the wiki to make sure what these settings are. You can even copy and paste if that is more convenient. The last thing that we would look at in the standard category is if you were doing the yourstore.com example, you might want to register a record for the www in front of it. While most sites do not require the www anymore, some stores do like to have it just for the look and feel and to have both of them work, the with and the without. If you are going to do that, then you need a special CNAME record for just the www. So this doesn't preclude what we just discussed about the other settings, the A and the CNAME settings here. This is in addition to these two settings. You'll need a second CNAME record for the www. Again, if you're on GoDaddy, it would just be the www. It'll append the rest. If yours and your documentation does not do that, then you can type in the rest of the domain. The rest of the records are the same as that asterisk from before. The TTL is your provider default or the 14400. The type is the CNAME, and the record or the value is ecom dnsverify.corebridge.net. That is the basic setup or the two main options that we offer for changing the custom or setting a custom URL inside of our e-commerce platform. The other topic we should discuss while we're here is renewing. You are highly encouraged to renew your SSL at least 4 weeks prior to its expiration. We do not monitor expiration dates, so if you do happen to let your expiration date lapse, your custom link will not work until the SSL is renewed. However, our generic link that is also in your My Stores settings would work in the meantime. So that's why we keep both. So if that happens, you can substitute our link until you get your SSL renewed. Again, we highly recommend that you do it at least 4 weeks prior to the expiration date. Gives you enough time to get all the settings in place. It also gives us enough time to make sure everything's updated on our side. When discussing the renewal, again, you can send us a completed PFX file if you are familiar with the DNS settings. If you need us to generate a new CSR for that renewal, depending on your type, you'll follow the example on screen. So if it's a wildcard, you'll send us these settings and it should match the same ones when you initially registered the SSL with us. If you're doing a standard, then you'll follow this setting either for the yourstore.com or for the other one, the shop.yourstore.com, depending on which type you are sending in. Once we get that request in and we get it over to you, you'll register the new request. It will still ask you for verification. And then it will send you the CRT. You will send that back to us and we will apply the settings or the changes to our server. It is highly recommended that you do have some type of help in this setup. If you're not familiar with DNS settings, they can be quite confusing. The e-commerce training team is very limited in the support that we can offer just because there are so many types of services out there. So it is highly recommended that you have someone either in your staff or someone that you know that can help you work through these settings um, via the wiki page here. If you have any additional questions, you can join us on our e-commerce Q&A session or email us at ecommerce@sirius.com and we'll help you as best we can. Thank you and have a great day.